Hello everyone, welcome to NeenvIAS. Today we will be going through the Prelims 2024 questions regarding the international relations. We will be analyzing the solutions and also the analysis for it, and we will also go through the other options given in the question and what could be the future questions for our examination. So let's begin. If you look at this graph, you can observe that slowly there is an increasing trend of questions from the IR perspective. There were times when before 2020 you could just go through the mapping portion of IR and go to exam directly, because hardly there used to be any questions from IR. But now from 2021 and 2022 onwards, UPSC is giving a lion's share of questions from international relations. So you'll have to do a dedicated preparation for IR from the prelims perspective also. Now, what are the type of questions that are asked in prelims from IR? Mostly it is about some international organizations which are in news, if there are any initiatives by any of the countries, especially the European Union or the USA. And when it comes to Africa and the South America, UPSC will mostly ask about countries in conflict. If there are any wars going on between countries, if there is any military coup, UPSC will focus on those countries, especially in the African and South American continents. Let's start the discussion. Consider the following countries: Italy, Japan, Nigeria, South Korea, and South Africa. Which of the above countries are frequently mentioned in the media for the lower birth rates, for the aging population, or declining population? So we need to identify the countries which are mentioned in the news frequently for aging population, lower birth rates, or declining population. So if you just glance at the options, selecting Japan is the easiest option because we know, and it is a very popular information, that Japan is suffering with a lot of aging population. That is their main issue. So 2 should definitely be in the question. So 2 is in option C, 2 is in option A. So the option B and D, there is no 2, so we can directly remove option B and D. Just by looking at one option, we already reached the 50-50 stage. And they say that South Africa is suffering from aging population. Do you think so? South Africa is a country, and South African continent is a country, just like India and China, would rather suffer from population explosion than suffer from aging population or declining population. The problem of India, China, and these African nations are population explosion, not the other way around. So South Africa should not be in the answer. So we have to remove option 5 and option D. So again here we can remove option B and D. Now South Korea also has a similar problem of Japan. The only difficulty for the students would have been that there is 2 and 4 here, there is 2 and 4 here. So whether Italy is suffering from the population decline or low birth rate, that is the main point here. If you knew that point of Italy, you will get this answer correctly. Otherwise, you might end up marking option C as the correct answer, when the correct answer is actually option A. Now let's go into the details and clearly discuss. I have put in the snapshots of various newspaper articles to highlight the fact that most of the questions are inspired from the news, and the news which frequently occur, not just one time. These topics are frequently in the news. If you're regularly reading the newspaper, you can easily get these questions correct. So this foreign policy magazine, there was an article about demography is destiny in Africa. Because of the rapid population growth, it can either become a demographic dividend. If not used correctly, it can become a demographic disaster. The article says that the African's population is growing at a 3 times higher than the world population, and by the end of this century, almost 1/3 of the people of the entire world will be from African continent. So here it shows how Africa is suffering from population explosion and not the other way around. And this article talks about how Nigeria has the Africa's biggest population numbers. So in our options, we have Nigeria. So we can remove Nigeria, we can remove South Africa. Let's talk about Japan. Japan, we discussed that they have the lowest birth rates, they have aging population, and Italy is also facing existential threat due to the lower birth rates. The population pyramid in Italy has been inverted. There's various reports because almost 25% of the population in Italy currently are people who are old, people who have already crossed the age of 65 years. So that is why the population pyramid is said to be inverted. And South Korea also suffers from the problem of aging population. From an IR perspective, what are the implications of it? A country like Japan, country like South Korea, which are industrialized countries, are suffering from aging population. So common sense says that they need workers. They need workers who are fit, young, who can work, take the nation forward. When there are too many old people, they would make such a policies that it would either increase and promote the population increase, or they would want to attract immigrants from the other nations. So similarly, by that logic, the countries are taking actions wherein Japanese companies are giving offers to people who have more children. The South Korean companies are giving financial incentives to its employees, to its young couples especially, to produce more babies. And both these countries also eased a lot of immigration rules so that they can attract more foreigners, young foreigners, to come and settle in their countries and work towards their economies. And they have also eased visa rules for the international students to attract into the country. So this is the IR implication of this population aspect, wherein the immigration rules become easy. More international students are allowed into the country. The companies are offering financial incentives to increase the population. Now, coming back to the question, like we discussed, Italy is suffering from the problem of aging population. Japan is suffering from the problem of aging population, and South Korea is also suffering from the same problem. So, option one is the right answer. Now, let's discuss this question. Who of the following is the author of the books The India Way and Why Bharat Matters? This question is one of the easiest questions in the paper. If you have come across The India Way, which was very pretty famous and in the news, and even Why Bharat Matters, which was released recently in the news, you could have easily answered it. The author is our External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar. Now, let's not only look at S. Jaishankar's books, but also the books of the other people, so that it will be useful for other examinations and for the future examination. These are the two books of S. Jaishankar, The India Way, which was released in 2020, and Why Bharat Matters, which was recently released in 2024, and it was in news, and that is the motivation for the question. And in the options, there is a mention of Bhupender Yadav. Mr. Bhupender Yadav, he is a BJP member, and in the recent Lok Sabha elections, he won as MP, and currently he is the environment minister. So he wrote a book called The Rise of the BJP. And in the option 2, we have Nalin Mehta. Nalin Mehta is a political scientist, and he also wrote a book about BJP called The New BJP. And the third name in the list is Shashi Tharoor. He has also written many books on India, and most of the aspirants got confused between Shashi Tharoor and S. Jaishankar because of the name Why Bharat Matters and the India Way, because Mr. Tharoor has also written many books about India. His famous book about the British rule is An Era of Darkness, and his other famous books are The Battle of Belonging, then The Great Indian Novel, Pax Indica, about Nehru, Ambedkar. And I also added one more book which was not in the list, but which was very close to the name is India That is Bharat, written by J. Deepak. This book was released last year. J. Deepak, as you know, is a famous Supreme Court lawyer. So this book actually is very close to the option given the name, having the name Bharat in it. So India That is Bharat is written by J. Deepak. The India Way is written by S. Jaishankar, and The Era of Darkness and Pax Indica, The Battle of Belonging, is written by Mr. Shashi Tharoor. So, like I said, this question is very easy. India Way and Bharat Matters. S. Jaishankar is the answer. Let's discuss the next question. Consider the following countries: Finland, Germany, Norway, and Russia. How many of the above countries have a border with the North Sea? So, first of all, as soon as you read this question, in your mind, you should think of where North Sea is located and then think of which are all could be the bordering countries of North Sea. This question is like in the pattern of the options introduced last year. Only one correct, only two correct. Now, why is this question in paper? Probably the examiner is inspired by this news where UK used to give these drilling licenses to the companies in the North Sea. North Sea is famous for oil and drilling resources, natural gas resources. So there were news reports throughout the year last year about UK granting licenses to these oil companies. And very recently, the Supreme Court laid down certain conditions on UK while it is going to give licenses to the oil extracting companies. Even before that, from IR perspective, let's go into some static details. How did UK come up to give these licenses? Through a legislation. The international convention which is related to this is the 1958 Geneva Convention on the Continental Shelf. According to this convention, the countries got the rights on the continental shelves and their adjacent coastlines, and because of which the countries like UK could explore in the North Sea. This Geneva Convention of 1858 on the continental shelves, it came into 1964, and after which the UK Parliament passed the Continental Shelf Act in the same year. And this act had provisions for giving licenses for the exploration and exploitation of resources in the continental shelf based in UK. And the first license was given to British Petroleum in the year 1964. And using this, UK came up with an authority called the NTSA, the North Sea Transition Authority, who is responsible for giving the licenses in the North Sea. And currently the NTSA is going with the 33rd round of licensing. Now let's go to the geography of North Sea. In this article in the Hindu, we should see how where a IR related article and a economic geography related article has various dimensions from which the questions could be asked. The same articles, there is a word to word line where you can easily answer the question. The name North Sea probably comes because the Dutch, for the Netherlands people, the sea is towards the north. So they named it as North Sea, and that is how it has been. And what are the countries bordering North Sea? We have UK on one side, that is the islands of Scotland and England. Then we have Netherlands, Belgium, and France towards the south. And towards the east, we have Norway here, Denmark here, and Germany here. So if you look at the options, we have Finland, we have Germany, we have Norway, we have Russia. So what you should do, how you should approach this question? You should first start by the elimination. If you think of North Sea, Russia is nowhere close. So Russia should have been the first one which should get eliminated. Next, we know that if this is Russia, Finland is somewhere here. So Finland should have been the next one to get eliminated. and we would have been left with Germany and Norway and giving the option only two correct. But most of the aspirants would have marked probably between option 2 and option 3, thinking that Russia is also a bordering country. What led to this confusion? When I spoke to few of the aspirants, I realized that they made a mistake of getting confused between the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. So North Sea is located here and the Baltic Sea is located next to it. So most of the aspirants, they thought the bordering countries of Baltic Sea, there is this Kaliningrad region of Russia. So Russia is one of the bordering nations because they got confused between North Sea and the Baltic Sea. So it is very important to understand and read the question once again and to be very clear about what the question is asking. If the question would have been Baltic Sea, it would have been Finland would have been the correct option, Russia would have been the correct option. But actually the question is asking about North Sea. So now that we have been discussing about Baltic Sea, we should also know about the Baltic nations. These three countries together, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, together are known as the Baltic nations. And what could be the future questions like? When you are reading something, you have to look at the region, also look at it from a geographical perspective, historical perspective. So here, like I said, the North Sea is located here and the Baltic Sea is located here. So if you observe in this picture, Denmark is located here. If somebody has to travel the commercial goods, they would have to go all the way from Denmark and come to North Sea. This is a way around. But what if we can build a canal here? So that is where the Kiel Canal comes into picture. Now what is this Kiel Canal? So it is a canal made connecting the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. In future, you can get a question asking which of the which of the canals connect the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. It is the Kiel Canal. And where is it located? It is located in Germany. If you see here, this is the border of Germany. So it is located in Germany. So it connects the North Sea on one side at the mouth of the Elbe River over here and the Baltic Sea at the Kiel harbor on the other side. So this is how the Kiel Canal is connected. Now Elbe River originates here and flows through Germany and flows all the way into the North Sea. And this area of Denmark is called the Jutland Peninsula. So you can also get a question about Jutland Peninsula. In future, you can get a question about Kiel Canal. So that is how you are supposed to read using the previous year questions. So like we discussed, the answer is only two because Russia and Finland are the bordering countries of Baltic Sea and not North Sea. Germany and Norway are the correct options. Now let's discuss the next question. Consider the following pairs: country and reason for being in news. Again, Argentina, post-economic crisis; Sudan, war between the country's regular army and the paramilitary forces; Turkey, rescinded its NATO membership. How many of the pairs given above are correctly matched? Now let's discuss one by one. Argentina was in news because Argentina was suffering from economic crisis. Argentina's inflation almost breached more than 200%, and it had various labor unions striking against the president, and they were hit with the worst drought in the last 50 years. And because of the inflation and the drought and the increase of the interest rate by the Federal Bank of USA, they also had forex issue. So the option 1, which says that Argentina post economic crisis, is correct because the inflation increased more than 200% and they had forex issues and other economic issues. Now let's look at the second option, conflict in Sudan. The options are war between the country's regular army and the paramilitary forces. In Sudan, currently there is a conflict going on between General Abdel Fattah al Burhan, who is the head of the armed forces and is the country's current president, and Mohammad Dagalo, who is the leader of Rapid Support Forces and the deputy of al Burhan. So, this Rapid Support Forces is a paramilitary force created by the previous president Omar al Bashir, and Mr. Dagalo is using that force to fight against Mr. Burhan, and Mr. Burhan is using his armed forces to fight against Mr. Dagalo. This is a quest for power, and in a separate video, we have already uploaded a whole 15 minutes video explaining this conflict, what are the reasons and concepts. Please go through that video. So the second statement, which says that war between the country's regular army and the paramilitary forces, is also correct. Now Turkey rescinding its NATO membership. Let's look at the news. What is NATO? NATO is a political and military alliance formed in 1949 through the Washington Treaty. Basically, this treaty was formed against the then Soviet Union, and under this treaty, the countries would want to safeguard their political freedom and the military freedom. Article 5 of the Washington Treaty says that an attack against one ally country will be considered as an attack against all the countries. So basically, if one NATO country is attacked, all other countries should go for its support and attack the perpetrator, because attack against one of them in the group will be considered as attack against all of them. This is a concept of collective defense. And the Article 4 of the same treaty says that the country should come into consultations on the security matters of common interest. And what are the other roles played by NATO? NATO leads the United Nations mandated ISAF, International Security Assistance Force, in places like Afghanistan and the missions in Balkans, Mediterranean, etc. NATO also gives support to the United Nations and African Union in solving various conflict situations. Now, what was the news about Turkey and NATO? There is one more clause in NATO which says that when a new member is appointed, all the existing members should approve it. So basically, they should have consensus. So for a new member to come into the NATO, all the existing members should give their approval. And when Sweden wanted to join NATO, Turkey and Hungary opposed the move. Opposed the move for almost 2 years. Now, what about Sweden? Why did Sweden want to join NATO suddenly? Sweden is such a country which has not fought any wars in the last 2 centuries. They stayed neutral even during the World Wars. They stayed neutral even during the Cold War. And it is very close to Russian border. So Sweden earlier used to think that it wouldn't want to join a security alliance, NATO, which is against the Russian interest, thereby going into bad books of Russia. But now Sweden is in a difficult position. Because of Russia's actions against Ukraine, Sweden will be forced to take sides for its own interests. Otherwise, in future, Russia can attack Sweden also. We never know. So that is why Sweden, which was neutral in the World Wars and during the Cold War, now is willing to join NATO for its own security and protection. And Finland, both Finland and Sweden applied for the NATO membership in 2022. All the countries agreed for Finland's membership. Finland was granted the NATO membership, but Sweden was not granted because Turkey and Hungary was opposing for almost 2 years. Now, why did Turkey oppose Sweden's membership? Because we just discussed that Sweden was one such country which used to be neutral in even during World Wars and the Cold War. So why did Turkey oppose Sweden? Turkey opposed Sweden because there are many groups within Sweden which are considered as terrorist by the Turkey. For example, the Kurdistan's Workers' Party, which works against the establishment in Turkey, is situated sometimes in Sweden. So Sweden is not taking any strict actions against those parties which Turkey is saying are terrorist groups and are bad for the interests of Turkey. Also, because of the liberal notion in Sweden, many times there have been Quran burning protests which have taken place in Sweden. And Turkey, being an Islamic country, is opposing this very liberal stand of Sweden. And that is the reason Turkey was opposing Sweden's membership. And why did Hungary oppose? Hungary opposed because Sweden made an official statement about the PM of Hungary and his rule of law and its state of democracy. Sweden made statements, negative statements about the current PM of Hungary. And this the current PM of Hungary, Mr. Orgn, is also said to have close friendship with Russia. So that is why Hungary was opposing the Sweden's membership. So after some negotiations, finally Turkey and Hungary agreed for the NATO's membership, and in March 2024, Sweden officially joined the NATO. Now let's go back to the question. It says that Turkey rescinded its membership of NATO. That is, Turkey came outside of NATO by giving up its membership. No, actually, in fact, Turkey was opposing the membership of Sweden and later on agreed for the membership of Sweden. So this option is wrong, clearly. So only two pairs are correct, where Argentina's worst economic crisis and Sudan's conflict between the regular army and the paramilitary force, that is the RSF led by Dagalo. Let's discuss the next question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. Recently, Venezuela has achieved a rapid recovery from its economic crisis and succeeded in preventing its people from fleeing or emigrating to other countries. Statement 2. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. Which of the following statements are correct? You would have been seeing in the news that from the last 6-7 years, there has been grave economic crisis going through Venezuela. There has been political crisis going through Venezuela. Since 2014, almost more than 7.7 million of Venezuelans have left their country due to political, economical, and social crisis, and also in search of a better future. Venezuela is a country which is located in South America. The political issues with regards to Venezuela are the President Nicolas Maduro. He is being ruling Venezuela with an iron fist as a dictator. So there are various anti-government protests happening in Venezuela since 2014, and it also happened in 2017. And in 2018, when the elections were conducted, Mr. Maduro dismissed the elections and he declared himself president again. Finally, very recently, a lady called Maria Corina, she won the elections with a landslide victory, but she was banned from the elections by Maduro. And even the Supreme Court supported the ban, saying that her membership from the elections is banned. So this is the political crisis going in Venezuela. At the same time, Venezuela is a country which is blessed with lot of oil resources. And because of the fall in the global oil prices 5-6 years back, the country fell into recession. Why? Because most of their income was from export of oil, and the global oil prices fell, so their income fell. The country went into recession, and it also led to skyrocketing inflation. So on one side there is recession, on the other side there is inflation. And because of this political conflict and because of the actions of Maduro and his dictatorship, USA, which is the harbinger of democracy, who tries to support democracy in every country, USA put lots of sanctions. So one side there is political crisis, other side there is economic crisis, oil prices falling, skyrocketing inflation, And because of US's sanctions, many countries stopped buying oil from Venezuela, which further aggravated their issue. Because of all this, the people started leaving the country and started going through other countries. They started running away, fleeing to other countries. And if you look at the map here, USA, there is Mexico here, and USA is located here in the world map. So, what could be the better option? People would want to go to USA. Even from Mexico, people and escape go to USA in search of the American dream. So, that is what started happening. People used to go to Mexico, and people used to travel from there to the US border and try to sneak into US illegally. So, seeing all of this, in 2021, USA came up with this rule saying that the Venezuelans who are traveling to Mexico, they have to carry travel visas. This rule was brought by Mexico because Mexico had become a tourist destination for all these people who are fleeing. So now this route of going to Mexico and going from there to the US was stopped. So Venezuelans now had to find another route. And if you look at the map here, there is a connection here. And this small connection is called the Darien Gap. But this Darien Gap is very dangerous because of the thick jungles, swamp like jungles. The rivers are very dangerous. There are mountains that you have to climb. Suddenly, there can be flash floods, and these areas are controlled by criminal organizations, militias. So, if you're going through this Darien Gap, if you're crossing through this Darien Gap, it is like you're playing gamble with your life. And you can also be exposed to vector-borne diseases, waterborne diseases, fungal, and other illness. So we can clearly see here that many people are leaving Venezuela since 2014. So clearly the statement saying that Venezuela has achieved rapid recovery and it has prevented from people from fleeing is definitely wrong. Now let's look at the second question statement. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. While discussing the economic crisis, we discussed about how Venezuela has been blessed with lots of oil resources. Yes, it is indeed the largest reserves of oil in the world. It has the largest reserves of oil in the world, estimated to be almost 300 billion barrels of oil. But currently, it is not exploiting all of it. At the same time, you should note that currently USA is the largest producer. Venezuela has the largest reserves. It is not the largest producer, but USA is the largest producer. So this map shows the oil reserves of various countries where Venezuela is on the top. And this map shows who are the producers of oil with USA being on the top. So this statement, Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, this is correct. So the option saying that statement 1 is incorrect but statement 2 is correct, option D is the right option because even now people are fleeing from Venezuela and Venezuela has the largest oil reserves. Let's discuss the next question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. There is instability and worsening security situation in the Sahel region. Statement 2. There have been military takeovers or coup d'etat in several countries of the Sahel region in the recent past. Now, what is the Sahel region? This is the first thing which should strike your mind. Sahel region is this region of Africa in the northern part of Africa. In Arabic, Sahel or Sahel means coast or shore. It stretches all the way from the Atlantic Ocean on the western side to the Red Sea on the eastern side. So all these countries coming in this border are called the Sahel region countries. The countries are Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Chad, Gambia, Guinea, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, and Senegal. On the northern side, we have the Sahara Desert here, and in the southern side, we have the savannas. So this region is kind of a transitional region, even geographically when it comes to climate. And the climate of this region is tropical semi-arid. So the nature of the geography, on the northern side we have the Sahara Desert, on the southern side we have the savannas, and the terrain is such that these countries, the lots of areas are inhospitable. It is like saying this Sahel region is the Afghanistan of Africa, because Afghanistan also has such a terrain with such mountains that it is very difficult for a government to control it. People cannot go and stay there. Very inhospitable terrain. And because of this inhospitable terrain in all these countries, it is difficult for any government to control it. And when there is power vacuum, and when there is no proper control like this, many other extra state actors come into picture. And because of which many armed groups are active in all these countries who try to take out power, who try to form out small groups, small areas, and try to rule them. Because of which frequent conflicts will keep going on in this Sahel region. And from 2012, there have been jihadist groups fighting for their interest, and it happened in Mali in 2012. And earlier, the Sahel region was the French colony. So, what France wanted to do, it wanted to bring in order in this earliest colony. So, it launched the anti jihadist military operation. And the operation of France was called the Operation Barhank, which was launched in 2014. Finally, just like how USA left Afghanistan because it couldn't control Afghanistan, France also realized that there is no point in controlling this region, which has this difficult terrain, which is impossible to control completely. So finally, in 2022, Emmanuel Macron withdrew his forces from this Sahel region. And once the French forces were withdrawn, the conflicts started becoming even more. Like I said, there are armed groups active, and even the French army is gone. So they became more powerful. There was nobody to control them. So there were frequent coups happening in this country where they would try to take over the current ruling government and started ruling with a dictatorship or military hand. So coups happened in Mali in 2021, and coups happened in Guinea, and coups happened in Burkina Faso. Earlier coups had taken place in Niger, Sudan. So this is the Sahel region. Now let's go back to the question. Statement 1 says there is instability and worsening security situation in the Sahel region. Yes, this is correct. There have been military takeovers or coups in the several countries of the Sahel region in the recent past. We just discussed about how coups have been happening in the last 2-3 years. So this statement is also correct, and statement 2 is the correct reason for statement 1. So option is A. Both the statement 1 and 2 are correct, and statement 2 explains the statement 1 correctly. Let's discuss the next question. Consider the following statements. India is a member of the International Grains Council. A country needs to be a member of the International Grains Council for exporting or importing rice and wheat. Which of the statements given above are correct? Now, this question I would say is moderate to difficult because it is not generally found in the compilations of institutes which the aspirants study. Probably the inspiration for this question could have been this Business Line article which had come in March. There is a mention about the International Grains Council. Now, what is this International Grains Council? It was established in 1949 as the International Wheat Council, and finally in 1995 the name was changed to International Grains Council. The secretariat of this International Grains Council is located in London. It has almost 30 members, and the members are all the parties to the Grains Trade Convention of 1995, and India is a member of this International Grains Council. And the Department of Food and Public Distribution, which comes under the Consumers Affairs Ministry, is the nodal agency from India which will deal with the International Grains Council. And they have two regular sessions every year, whether it can be in London or it can be in the nation of any member country who invites them. And the International Grains Council will classify each member as either importer or exporter based on how much trade they have in grains, rice, oilseeds, etc. The current chairperson of this International Grains Council is Miss Anita Katyal. Don't get misled by the name, Indian name. Miss Anita Katyal is a US citizen. She is serving as a US FAS officer, which is Foreign Agricultural Service Officer. So, this could be asked in any of the other questions like SSC. Miss Anita Katyal is not an Indian. She is a US citizen working as the Foreign Agricultural Service Officer and is the current chairperson of the International Grains Council. Now, what are the functions of the International Grains Council? The main function is to promote international cooperations in the area of trade of grains, food grains, provide a platform for discussion, coordination when it comes to policies regarding the grains, and to enhance the world food security. IGC also monitors and provides various reports on wheat, maize, rice, and other coarse grains like barley, sorghum, oats, etc. It also publishes a report called the Grain Market Report, which shows that whether the prices of the grains in the world market are going to increase or going to decrease. Like in the business line article, they had mentioned that because of the increase in supply of food grains after the COVID, this year the food grain prices might slightly fall in the international market. So that is a report released by International Grains Council. The other functions are to oversee the implementation of the Grains Trade Convention of 1995 and to see what are the developments which takes place in the grains market and to help countries in changing their national grain policies and to provide services to the Food Aid Committee, which was established under the Food Aid Convention of 1999. And it also engages with other international bodies like WTO and FAO. So the main point here is nowhere it is mentioned that it is mandatory for a country to be a member for it to export or import rice and wheat using this IGC. So now let's go back to the question. The question says India is a member of the International Grains Council. Yes, India is a member. So this is correct. And the second statement says that country needs to be a member of IGC for exporting or importing rice and wheat. No, a country, it is not mandatory for a country to be a member. So this is wrong. So which of the statements are correct? Only statement 1 is correct. Now let us discuss the next question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The European Parliament approved the Net Zero Industry Act recently. Statement 2. The EU intends to achieve carbon neutrality by 2040 and therefore aims to develop all of its clean energy technologies by that time. Whenever there is any fact, you have to be very careful because it is difficult to go wrong in a conceptual question, but it is very easy to go wrong in a factual question because we tend to oversee the facts. So this question says that the European Parliament recently approved the Net Zero Industry Act, and the statement 2 says that the EU is trying to achieve carbon neutrality by 2040. Now let's look at the news. The European Parliament indeed approved the Net Zero Industry Act in order to enhance the net zero technology within the European Union. So European Union wants to bring in such technology. They want to promote such technology which can help reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and help them achieve the net zero emissions. They would want to produce almost 40% of its net technology needs have to be met through this technology by 2030 and also capture 15% of the global market for this technology. That is the objective of this act. And what are these net zero technologies? It can be renewable technologies, can be nuclear industrial technologies which helps in decarbonization, which will ultimately reduce the carbon emissions. It can be related to the efficiency, increasing the efficiency of the grid of electricity. It can be energy storage technology, or it can be related to biotechnology. So the statement 1, which says that the European Parliament approved the Net Zero Industry Act recently, is correct. The statement 2 talks about the EU achieving carbon neutrality by 2040. Here one should have been careful because this is a fact. The EU does intend actually to achieve the carbon neutrality, but it is not 2040, but it is 2050. This, the fact given in the question was wrong. The EU wants to achieve the net climate neutral by 2050 and have the net zero emissions. And this objective is stated in the European Green Deal, and it is also a legally binding target undertaken by the EU. So the statement 2 has a wrong fact, so this is wrong. So the correct option is only option 1, which is only statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. So option C. Let us discuss the next question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The Suez pipeline is a strategic route for Persian Gulf oil and natural gas shipments to Europe. Suez pipeline is a strategic route for the Persian Gulf oil and natural gas shipments to Europe. Statement 1. Statement 2. The Suez pipeline connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea. This question was slightly difficult if you haven't come across this. And the inspiration for this question, according to May, is the Yemens and the Houthis, which are backed by the Yemenis, have been targeting vessels in the Red Sea since last November. You would have seen the various news articles about how the Houthis are attacking various oil tankers in the Red Sea. And why is Red Sea crucial? Because of the Suez Canal. So if there is no access to a Suez Canal, and if the container shipments cannot pass through Suez Canal, one has to go through the longer route crossing the African continent of and the Cape of Good Hope. And why were the Houthis attacking ships? In order to show their support for the Hamas in Palestine against Israel. And what is the implication for India? India is a country who imports the crude oil through the Suez Canal route, and we export the refined petroleum products to Europe through the same Suez Canal route. So any blockade of Suez Canal will directly impact the Indian oil resources and the business. And when it comes to the trade, India was the third biggest player in terms of petroleum product volumes sent north, that is, the refined product sent towards the eastern areas in the Suez Canal. We are discussing about Suez Canal. What is the role of the Suez pipeline here? The Suez pipeline is a pipeline located within Egypt as an alternative to the Suez Canal. Both the Suez Canal and the Suez pipeline are used as strategic routes to transport the oil and natural gas from the Red Sea area to the Mediterranean Sea area. So basically from the Persian Gulf to the European regions. So now let's look at the details of this Suez pipeline. This pipeline is also known as the Suez Mediterranean pipeline because it is close to the Suez Canal and as an alternative to the Suez Canal, and it is connecting the Mediterranean Sea here and connecting the Red Sea here. So it is also known as the Suez and Mediterranean pipeline. On one side it connects the Red Sea, on the other side it connects the Mediterranean Sea, thereby acting as an alternative to the Suez Canal. And this pipeline is owned by a Arab petroleum pipeline company called Suez Company. So that is why the name Suez Pipeline. And it is a joint venture company by the Egyptian oil company, Saudi Aramco has a share in it, the IPIC of UAE has a share in it, and also three Kuwaiti companies and the Qatar Energy has share in it. So it is a joint venture of all these oil companies. So now let's go back to the question. The Suez pipeline is a strategic route for the Persian Gulf oil and natural gas shipments to Europe. We just discussed as how the Suez pipeline can act as a alternative to the Suez Canal connecting the Persian Gulf and the European regions. So option 1 is correct. Statement 2. The Suez pipeline connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea. That is what we just discussed. It connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea. Statement 2 is also correct, and statement 2 is the correct reason for statement 1. Hence option A is correct. This question would have been slightly a difficult question because many of us study about Suez Canal, but we rarely study about Suez pipeline. Let's discuss the next question. Consider the following statements regarding the World Toilet Organization. It is one of the agencies of the United Nations. Question 2. World Toilet Summit, World Toilet Day, World Toilet College are the initiatives of this organization to inspire action to tackle the global sanitation crisis. Option 3. The main focus of its function is to grant funds to the least developed countries and developing countries to achieve the end of open. Which of the statements are correct? World Toilet Organization is a global non-profit organization which was established in 2001. And what was the main purpose? It was established to improve the toilet and sanitation conditions worldwide. So what it does? It empowers individuals through education, training, building opportunities so that they can provide a clean and safe sanitation facilities in all the communities. And why is it important? Because as humans, we almost spend 2 years of our life in the toilet. And defecation is important from the health point of view also because many of the children suffer due to various diseases and have premature early deaths because of the diseases related to bad sanitation. And it is also important to educate the school children and the girls and the boys about the sanitation, about hand wash. And many schools doesn't have even basic facilities for hand wash after using the toilet. And the problem of open defecation. So that is the main purpose wherein this World Toilet Organization, they will empower the individuals through education training so that we can provide a clean and safe sanitation to everyone. This is not an agency of an United States like I discussed. It is a global non-profit organization, but it has consultative status by the UN Economic and Social Council from 2013. And the various initiatives undertaken by the World Toilet Organization are: they celebrate the World Toilet Day in order to give awareness to the people about good sanitation practices. They undertake the World Toilet Summit, wherein they bring in all the stakeholders from all the countries so that we can provide more awareness and capacity building exercises. And the World Toilet College in order to increase awareness about the good sanitation practices. And this WTO, World Toilet Organization, also serves as a platform for various governments, academic institutions, foundations, NGOs, and other corporate stakeholders to discuss and improve the sanitation conditions worldwide. And there was a UN resolution which was supported by Singapore and later on passed by all the countries, designating 19th November as World Toilet Day. So now currently from 2013, since the year 2013, every year 19th November is celebrated as the World Toilet Day in order to improve the sanitary conditions, in order to increase the awareness and education for people about the safe sanitation practices. Now let's look at the question again. Discuss the state, consider the statements about the World Toilet Organization. It is one of the agencies of the United Nations. We discussed that it is a non-profit organization and not an agency of United Nations. So it is wrong. World Toilet Summit, World Toilet Day, World Toilet College, all these are initiatives by the organization to inspire and tackle global sanitation crisis. This is correct. We discussed in the key initiative. And the main focus of its function is to grant funds and to the least developed countries and the developing countries. Here one has to be very careful because by just a cursory glancing, we think yes, when this organization is working towards the sanitation, obviously as a global organization, it will be granting funds. No, it directly doesn't grant any funds to the developing countries, developed countries, nothing. It just acts as a organization which will provide education and awareness services. Nowhere in the mandate it is mentioned that it will grant funds to developing countries or developed countries. It only provides education, training, and capacity building. So that is why this third statement is wrong. So which of the statements are correct? Statement 1 is wrong, statement 3 is wrong, only statement 2 is correct. That is, option A is correct. I hope you liked the discussion. Follow our channel for more such videos. Thank you so much.